The 1970s were a golden crossroads where sweet soul, deep funk, and velvety R&B blossomed into something timeless. These are 10 70s R&B albums that never got the shine they earned, but still groove just as strong today. Number 10, Vitamin E by Vitamin E, the cosmic soul you missed. Released in 1977 on Buddha Records, Vitamin E's self-titled album arrived at a time when disco was exploding and funk was stretching into space. But somehow, this little gem slipped between the cracks. The band mixed jazzy arrangements with silky R&B vocals and shimmering synth lines, giving the whole record a warm, late-night glow. What's wild is that the project quietly featured musicians who would go on to shape jazz fusion and pop sessions in the decades that followed. Yet they received barely any credit at the time. Listening now, you can almost picture yourself stepping into a dim lounge in 77, neon signs flickering outside, while that smooth bass line glides across the room. Tracks like Lady and Without You carried a sophistication that should have made waves, but limited promotion kept the album from reaching the wider audience it deserved.
That line's for real, and you always wanna spread your love. Your love is a kiss away.
Today, it's a crate-digging favorite, sampled, rediscovered, and cherished by soul lovers who know the magic they found. And if you're craving a deeper, richer strain of 70s soul, just wait, because the next album dives right into that tender early morning feeling. Number 9, Come Into My World by Dee Dee Bridgewater, the soulful spark hiding in plain sight. Dropped in 1974 on Atlantic Records, this album came at a moment when Dee Dee Bridgewater was still known mostly as a powerhouse jazz vocalist. But here, she leaned fully into lush contemporary R&B, melding strings, warm horns, and that unmistakable honey-rich voice. It was a bold pivot, yet the label hardly pushed it, overshadowed by flashier releases of the mid-70s. What many don't know is that some of the finest Memphis and New York session players of the era quietly backed her on these tracks, giving the album a polished, soulful depth that feels criminally overlooked. Spin it now, and you're transported straight into a smoky 74 studio. Amber lights, analog warmth, musicians nodding in sync as Dee Dee shapes each note like a slow-burning flame. Songs like He's Gone and What Will My Baby Say carried all the tenderness and ache of the decade's finest ballads, but they never got the radio love they deserved.
And he's gone.
Over time, the album became a whispered recommendation among collectors, one of those, trust me, you need this records. And if you think this one hit you softly, our next entry brings a whole different shade of Quiet Storm, something smooth, subtle, and impossible to forget. Number 8, BT Express 1980 by BT Express, the groove that slipped through the decade's cracks. By the time this album landed at the tail end of the 70s, BT Express had already delivered some of funk's most unstoppable rhythms, but with disco fading and new wave rising, this 1978 to 1979 transitional release didn't get the push or airplay its tight, soul-rooted grooves deserved. The band was evolving, leaner, sharper, experimenting with warmer melodies and more polished arrangements, yet their label was shifting focus, leaving this record floating under the radar. Inside the studio, though, they were on fire. Musicians who'd fueled earlier funk hits poured their energy into these tracks, layering bass lines that walked with attitude and horns that snapped like sunlight. Play it today, and you can practically feel yourself back in a Brooklyn block party. Dusk settling, that guitar lick cutting through humid summer air as dancers keep moving long after the streetlights pop on. Though overlooked on release, the album has quietly grown into a cult favorite, championed by DJs and collectors who recognized the smooth, late 70s soul-funk fusion it captured right before the band stepped into a new decade. And if this groove lit a spark, Just wait, because the next entry takes us deeper into the silky side of 70s R&B, where romance ruled and every note felt like a warm embrace. Number 7. This is Niecy by Denise Williams, the angelic masterpiece overshadowed by bigger names. Released in 1976 on Columbia Records, Denise Williams' debut album carried one of the most delicate, breathtaking voices of the decade. But even with her undeniable talent, the record arrived during a flood of powerhouse releases. Aretha, Chaka, Minnie, Diana, all dominating radio and label budgets. As a result, this shimmering gem didn't receive the full spotlight it earned. Behind the scenes, though, magic was happening. Maurice White and the Earth, Wind and Fire production family shaped the sound. Those featherlight strings, that airy funk touch, arrangements that felt like clouds parting. Denise recorded many of these vocals in just a few takes, her pure tones stunning everyone in the studio. Drop the needle today, and you're right back in 76. Warm vinyl crackle, a soft lamp glowing, and Denise's voice floating like a whispered prayer across the room. Tracks like Watching Over and If You Don't Believe offered a spiritual sweetness rarely matched in mainstream R&B, blending innocence, romance, and quiet strength.
Somebody loves you. Somebody's watching. If you don't believe all the tears.
Though it charted modestly, the album's legacy grew through word of mouth, sampled by producers, adored by collectors, and treasured by listeners who craved a softer, celestial soul. And if this album gave you goosebumps, brace yourself, because the next one carries that same emotional tenderness, but wraps it in deeper grooves and raw heartache. Number 6, Chain Reaction by the Crusaders, the smooth burn classic that quietly redefined 70s R&B fusion. Released in 1975 on Blue Thumb Records, Chain Reaction arrived right as the Crusaders were shifting from their jazz roots into a richer, soul-infused R&B sound. It was that perfect moment when the band's rhythm-heavy grooves met warm melodies and subtle vocal touches. But because it didn't fit neatly into radio categories, the album never found the mass audience it deserved. Inside the studio, however, the group was in rare form. Joe Sample's keys glided like sunlight over water. Wilton Felder's bass lines walked with confidence, and Styx Hooper's drumming moved with this effortless heartbeat pulse. There's a famous story that some of the album's most magical moments were recorded during late-night sessions when the band refused to stop playing. Feeling the groove too deeply to let the tape stop rolling. Spin it today, and you're instantly transported to a mid-70s lounge. Dim lights, vintage wood paneling, the scent of cologne and vinyl in the air. The album doesn't shout, it glides, charms, and sinks in slowly, like a conversation you don't want to end. Its influence can be felt in neo-soul, smooth jazz, and the warmer side of 90s R&B production. And if the mellow sophistication of this record hits you just right, trust, what's coming next only gets richer, deeper, and even more slept on. If these underrated 70s gems are bringing back memories or helping you discover something new, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. It helps keep the soul alive. And don't go anywhere. We've still got 5 more hidden treasures waiting to shine. Number 5, Feel No Fret by Average White Band, the silky groove that deserved far more love. When this album dropped in 1979 on Atlantic Records, the Average White Band had already proven they could hang with the funkiest acts in America. But Feel No Fret showcased a smoother, more mature side, layering polished R&B, jazz-touched arrangements, and heartfelt vocal harmonies. The problem? It arrived during a shifting musical moment. Disco was fading, new styles were emerging, and the album didn't neatly fit any one box, so it quietly slipped past the mainstream despite its undeniable craftsmanship. What most listeners didn't know was that the band recorded parts of this album in Montserrat, surrounded by ocean breezes and late-night jam sessions that breathed warmth into the grooves. There's a story that some vocal takes happened at 3 a.m., capturing that hushed, intimate energy you can still feel on tracks like Atlantic Avenue and Too Late to Cry.
So come home, stand on Atlantic Avenue. Now it's too late to cry.
Drop the needle now, and you're back in a late 70s living room. Soft carpet, a glowing stereo console, and those silky guitar lines wrapping around you like a warm coat. The album blended sophistication with soul, inspiring future blue-eyed soul artists and quietly influencing 80s R&B smoothness. If this one made your shoulders sway, just wait. Our next album brings even deeper emotion, wrapped in warm production and storytelling that deserved so much more spotlight. Number 4, Sunbeam by The Emotions, the warm, honey-dipped soul that glowed quietly in the background. Released in 1978 on Columbia Records, Sunbeam found The Emotions at a creative high point. They had just come off the massive success of Best of My Love, but instead of repeating themselves, they leaned into a softer, richer blend of R&B, gospel sweetness, and gentle funk. Yet in a year dominated by disco giants, this mellow masterpiece didn't get the airplay or label push it needed to truly shine. What makes this album special is how personal it feels, like the sisters invited you into their living room harmonies. Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire once again sprinkled his signature touch across the production, guiding arrangements that shimmered without ever overshadowing those stunning vocals. There are studio stories of the sisters nailing entire harmonies in a single pass, their voices so locked in that engineers would just shake their heads in disbelief. Play Sunbeam today, and you're pulled straight into a warm Chicago summer evening. Open windows, the hum of traffic below, and harmonies drifting through the air like a soft breeze. With tracks such as Smile and I Don't Want to Lose Your Love, the album carried an emotional glow that influenced the Quiet Storm era soon to follow. Though it never reached the heights of their biggest hits, Sunbeam grew into a cult favorite, a record whispered between collectors and beloved by anyone who treasures soulful vocal perfection. And if that sweetness warmed your heart, get ready. The next album brings a deeper, jazz-soaked soulfulness that still feels like a secret waiting to be heard. Number 3, Minnie by Minnie Riperton, the emotional masterpiece too intimate for its time. Released in 1979 on Capitol Records, Minnie arrived just months before the world lost one of soul's most celestial voices. It was her final gift, an album filled with tenderness, longing, and quiet joy. But because her illness overshadowed the release, and the label didn't know how to promote such a deeply personal project, it never earned the widespread attention it deserved. Inside the studio, though, Minnie was radiant. Surrounded by her longtime collaborators, she poured every ounce of emotion into these recordings. There's a touching story that some vocal sessions were done sitting down because her health was fragile, yet the purity and strength of her voice still floated effortlessly above the arrangements. Spin the album now, and you're transported to a soft-lit room in '79, where every instrument feels close enough to touch. Minnie's voice is a warm, trembling halo as she sings over mellow bass lines, gentle rhythm guitars, and those trademark whistles that feel like sunlight breaking through clouds. Tracks like Memory Lane and Lover and Friend reveal a woman reflecting on life with grace, hope, and unshakable beauty.
Back down memory lane, I see the happiness that you as a lover and friend.
Though it charted only modestly, its legacy grew through generations of artists who saw in it a blueprint for vulnerability and vocal fearlessness. Neo-soul singers, R&B storytellers, even modern pop vocalists, many traced their emotional style back to this album's quiet power. And if Minnie's tender brilliance struck your heart, brace yourself, because our next album brings a deeper, groovier kind of underrated magic from a group that never got the mainstream love their artistry deserved. Number 2, All in All by Rolls Royce, a soulful universe overshadowed by their own hits. Released in 1978 on Whitfield Records, All in All came right after Rolls Royce had conquered the charts with Car Wash. But instead of chasing another blockbuster soundtrack moment, they crafted a richer, more mature R&B album, layered with lush arrangements, deep grooves, and Gwen Dickey's shimmering vocals. The tough part, the public and the label kept expecting another disco anthem, so this elegant, soul-forward record didn't get the spotlight it deserved. Behind the scenes, producer Norman Whitfield pushed the band toward warmer textures and emotional storytelling. Strings were recorded with almost orchestral precision. Horns were stacked like velvet, and the rhythm section, always Rolls Royce's heartbeat, locked in with a slower, deeper confidence. Studio engineers have said some songs were reworked late into the night, the band perfecting transitions that most listeners wouldn't even notice, but would feel. Play it today, and you're instantly transported into the living, breathing soul of late 70s Los Angeles. Palm trees at dusk, warm pavement, a soft glow in the sky. Tracks like Ooh Boy and I Wanna Get Next to You wrap around you like a satin jacket.
Ooh boy, I love you so, never ever ever gonna let you go. I wanna get next to you.
All sweetness and longing. It became a quiet influence on 80s R&B balladry and the smoother side of West Coast soul, shaping artists who learned how to let groove and tenderness coexist. If this lush, overlooked beauty pulled you deeper into the decade, then trust me, nothing will prepare you for the Quiet Storm masterpiece sitting at number 1. It's an album that whispered rather than shouted, yet it still echoes through soul music today. Number 1, Come Into My World by Leroy Hudson, the quiet storm jewel that still feels like a well-kept secret. Released in 1979 on Curtom Records, Come Into My World dropped at a time when Leroy Hudson, Curtis Mayfield's one-time musical protege, was crafting some of the most elegant, romantic R&B of the decade. Yet despite his genius as a songwriter, arranger, and producer, Hudson never received the mainstream spotlight that many of his contemporaries enjoyed. With disco dominating radio and labels chasing faster, flashier hits, this warm, soulful masterpiece quietly slipped through the cracks. But inside the studio, Hudson was building something stunning. He layered velvety strings, soft electric pianos, tender percussion, and harmonies stacked like satin sheets. Engineers recall that Hudson often recorded vocal takes standing inches from the mic, whisper singing lines to capture a deeply intimate texture you can still feel today. Every track feels handcrafted, like he was laying out a private world of romance for anyone willing to step inside it. Drop the needle now, and you're transported to a late-night moment in 1979. Lamps dimmed, curtains drawn, the world outside slowing down. The album moves like a slow dance, gentle, swaying, heartfelt. Songs like Paradise and Come Into My World offer lush arrangements that became blueprints for future Quiet Storm classics. Neo-soul producers, smooth R&B artists, even chilled-out hip-hop beatmakers, so many draw from Hudson's soft glow elegance without even realizing they're tapping into this album. Though it never broke major charts, Come Into My World grew into one of the most beloved underground soul treasures of the 70s, shared from one collector to another like a whispered secret. And today, it stands as a reminder that some of the greatest R&B of the era wasn't the loudest or the flashiest, it was the gentlest. From velvety slow burners to jazzy fusions and overlooked vocal masterworks, these underrated 70s R&B albums prove that the decade's deepest treasures often live just under the surface. Thanks for joining us on this soulful journey. If you love discovering these hidden gems, subscribe to keep the groove alive and never miss our next stroll through music history. Up next, 10 highest-selling R&B albums of the 70s. Click the end screen and let's keep the rhythm rolling.